Hello friends, this is going to be a guide for how to complete a 32 heat run in Hades. I would like to apologize right off the bat. I do know that the audio quality for my microphone is atrocious. This is a $20 Logitech headset that I've had for years, and unfortunately I don't have anything that sounds any better right now. Also, by the nature of this being a roguelike game, there's not a lot that I can do as far as scripting goes, so there's going to be a lot of ums and ahs and stumbling over my words, and maybe a few mispronunciations. Not a whole lot that I can do about that either, but I do hope that the actual information inside will be quite valuable. So, I'd like to go ahead and start by looking at the Mirror of Night talents. I'll go over each of these and why I prefer one to the other. Some of these will be up to player preference, some of these I think are mandatory. And starting off, we've got Shadow Presence versus Fiery Presence. I do take Shadow Presence, however, I think that there is an argument that can be made for Fiery Presence. 2 backstabs from Shadow Presence will outdamage Fiery Presence, but there is no guarantee that you're going to be able to get 2 or even 1 backstab against an enemy in a fight, and so if you think that that is something that you don't really want to risk, having to try and position behind enemies for the extra damage, the guaranteed damage from Fiery Presence can be quite good. It's not a huge difference either way, I think, so whichever you're more comfortable with is just what I'd go for. We've got Chthonic Vitality versus Dark Regeneration. I think Chthonic Vitality is just way better than Dark Regeneration. I'm running Dark Foresight, which reduces the amount of darkness that you'll see in a run. I also think that as far as the extra rewards, the extra health or gold that you might get from picking one of these Blue Laurel rewards, the extra health is better than the gold from gems, but worse than everything else, and so it's a relatively low priority. And then additionally, if you still have bounties to collect, if you have not done 20 heat on that weapon yet, then you won't see darkness between floors, and so it gets even worse. And so I think that not only is this consistent healing every room, no matter what, you're probably just going to get more healing over the course of a run from it as well. So I would take this every time. Maybe not if you've done 20 heat with a weapon and you're going to get darkness at the end of the floor, but even then I'd still probably take it. Death Defiance versus Stubborn Defiance. This is something that you can go either way on. However, I do strongly suggest Death Defiance. The most difficult part of this game is generally the bosses, especially the final boss, and so you want to have as many opportunities to survive those as possible. Stubborn Defiance allows you to survive in individual rooms better if you're dying a lot in those rooms, but I also think that if you're having a lot of trouble and you're dying in individual non-boss rooms often enough that you need Stubborn Defiance, then you should probably work on that before attempting a 32 heat run. Otherwise, the times where Stubborn Defiance might be okay are if you are taking 100% healing reduction, which I do not recommend. I think that there are much better pacts that you can take for 32 heat. But if you are, then you can use Stubborn Defiance as a sort of pseudo-heal between floors. If you still have it left over at the end of a room, you can trigger traps or run into lava in order to kill yourself and get some health back. But I would say Death Defiance is going to be better for you almost always. It's also easier to refill Death Defiances. There's the NPC room in Elysium. There are Athena boons. There are shops where you can buy extra Death Defiances. So even though you're more limited, it's pretty easy to restock them, and you might be able to have 7 or 8 in a run if you get lucky. Greater Reflex versus Ruthless Reflex I think is not even a competition. I think Greater Reflex is absolutely mandatory. The 50% extra damage and dodge from Ruthless Reflex is quite nice, but being able to dash again is even better. I do think that dashing is pretty much the best thing that you can be doing in this game, and you want to be dashing almost at all times. Not only do you get the iframes, but you also get whatever your dash boon is, proccing multiple times. You get to maneuver around the map more easily, and you get to dash strike. And for pretty much every weapon, dash striking is just better than your regular attack. The bow might do less damage when you dash strike with it, for example, but you get the faster charge up, and any other melee weapon will just do more damage with a dash strike than with a normal strike. So Greater Reflex is super duper good. Even if I were to pick up Greatest Reflex, even an epic Greatest Reflex, and have +3 dashes, I'd still rather get the extra dash from Greater Reflex than having the buff from Ruthless Reflex. I think dashing is just that good. Boiling Blood versus Abyssal Blood. I also think that Boiling Blood is the clear winner here. For the most part in Hades, extra damage is better than extra survivability. That's not always the case. Even some of these perks here will be about extra survivability, but killing enemies before they can hit you means that you're going to have fewer chances to take damage. And Boiling Blood is a nice 50% damage boost. It's very, very strong. It's strong enough to the point that I actually avoid picking up casts that can't stick in enemies. Even if they might be stronger overall, I find that the Boiling Blood bonus is just so nice that I really don't want to give that up. And so, Abyssal Blood is still good, but it's extra survivability versus extra damage, and so I would just take Boiling Blood every single time. The first alternate talent that I take is Stygian Soul instead of Infernal Soul. This is certainly personal preference. I think it's probably the most flexible one on the list. I like Stygian Soul just because I don't have to worry about the sort of upkeep and maintenance for Infernal Soul. I don't have to track who's got my casts in them. I don't have to go and collect my casts. Against bosses, my damage is massively increased because I can just keep casting every 3 seconds and don't have to wait for them to fall out. And it also helps get me in a rhythm to cast. I can just look at the little timer, and as soon as it goes up back up to 1, I can cast again. When I take Infernal Soul, a lot of times I'll just forget to cast in fights, or I'll cast 3 times at the start of the fight and then not press it again after that. So this just helps me out a lot. You might have more overall damage in normal rooms with Infernal Soul, and the optimal choice might then be Infernal Soul, but I really do prefer Stygian Soul just for ease of use. Deep Pockets and Golden Touch, also something that's super flexible. I've gone back and forth between these quite a bit, but right now I am using Deep Pockets. If you use Golden Touch, then you'll probably want to start with the Coin Purse Keepsake, and I've been starting with God Keepsakes lately, so that's one of the big reasons why I take Deep Pockets. Deep Pockets also just helps you pick up something early to help flesh out your build when you're still weak. Being able to grab an early boon, especially if you need to sell something and you don't want to sell any of the boons that you currently have, then the extra early money can help with that. And also if you're buying a lot of healing items and you're going into the next area pretty poor, you might actually not even get 100 gold out of Golden Touch. But shops are also pretty low priority on high heat, and so you're unlikely to spend too much, and there's a good chance the Golden Touch will be more money by the end, but the nice early boost is very helpful, so I go with Deep Pockets. Thick Skin versus High Confidence. I think Thick Skin is mandatory. High Confidence is a damage boost, but it is only a 25% damage boost, and it is conditional. You have to be at 80% health or above, and that's not going to happen all that often. If it is happening, and you're always at 80% health or above, well, it doesn't really matter which one of these you take. You're going to win the run anyway, and in fact, if that's the case, you probably don't even need to be watching this. So for anybody that isn't going to be at 80% or above life most of the time, Thick Skin is huge. Thick Skin doubles your starting health. It is a massive survivability boost at the point in the game where you are at your weakest, and it really still is super helpful even late in the game. 50 health is a lot. I would take it every single time. I would never take High Confidence unless I'm like speed running or something like that, and even then I still usually take Thick Skin just for safety. Privilege Status versus Family Favorite. A lot of people do like Family Favorite, but I am huge into Privilege Status. I try to take 2 status curses as the backbone of my run pretty much every time. It is a 40% damage boost versus the Family Favorite probably only getting you like 25%. You'd have to get 8 Olympians to match the damage boost in Privilege Status, which is incredibly unlikely to happen. It might even be impossible. I'm not totally sure. But lots of status curses are good on their own, so they're never bad pickups. And I really highly value like Aphrodite on attacker special. I try and pick that up on pretty much every weapon every time, and that's a free status curse right there. So you pick another one up, and it's pretty strong. I also really like Athena Dash. So if you can pick up like Athena Dash makes you exposed, and Aphrodite on attack, then your dash strikes are giving you privilege status instantly, and you don't have to worry about casting or using special or anything like that to keep that up. But even if you don't get something like that, it's still pretty easy to keep it up. Dark Foresight versus Olympian Favor, also something that's up to personal preference, but I do strongly prefer Dark Foresight. In this case, it's a question of quantity over quality. Do you want stronger boons on average or more boons on average? And here I think just getting more boons is better. Being able to see more options and have a greater chance to pick up the particular boons that you want, I think is better than the up to rarity, especially with God's Pride also upping our rarity. Then if you see an obol or a palm or a heart, well, those don't have rarities. So if you get one of those because of Dark Foresight, that is a strict upgrade over Olympian Favor. If you really, really, really want higher rarity boons, you can take Olympian Favor, but I think Dark Foresight's just a winner here. God's Pride versus God's Legacy. You can take God's Legacy if you're looking to go for very specific builds that rely on specific duos or legendaries. I do not do that, and I do not recommend that, even if that's what speedrunners use, because we're trying to have consistently strong runs where we can win every time, and we don't need to be the best players. We're trying to maximize our chances of success, not maximize our clear time. And in that case, the consistent rarity ups from God's Pride are going to be more useful than the chance to high roll into a really good legendary or duo, especially because you might pick up a legendary or duo that's not very good for your build if you're not hyper focused on a specific build. So God's Pride will just make you overall much stronger, and I use it again every time. Fated Persuasion versus Fated Authority. I think Fated Persuasion is mandatory. Fated Authority allows you to re-roll rooms, but you might not get what you want even when you re-roll the room. For example, let's say you're trying to pull a boon from a door, and you've got a palm out. Well, you might roll that palm into obols, and then you might roll those obols back into a palm. And now you've got to roll a third time just for a chance to see a boon. And even if you do get a boon, it might not be the god you want. And if it is the god you want, it might not be the boon that you want, and so on. There's just a lot of ways for it to go poorly. I'm not really very happy with it, even when I take it. I've been much, much, much happier with Fated Persuasion. Fated Persuasion lets you reroll boons, it lets you reroll the well, it lets you reroll the Pool of Purging, and when we're doing a build like this where we're really just looking for generically good boons, it's extremely likely that within one reroll you'll have found something that you're willing to take, and if not, a second reroll will pretty much guarantee it. And so Fated Persuasion just ends up having a way bigger upside than Fated Authority. The only real upside that Fated Authority has over Fated Persuasion is that you get 8 rolls instead of 4, but I think that those 4 rolls are just significantly more valuable, and it makes keys really valuable too. A key is an extra reroll whether or not you've got Fated Authority or Fated Persuasion, and so Persuasion is just very, very, very good. So, moving on, I'm only going to briefly cover weapons. There's too many. I don't have enough experience with every single weapon, and I do think it's mostly personal preference. I'm going to use fists here, and I'm going to do that for 2 reasons. One of them, and I'm going to be using the aspect of Demeter, one of the reasons is that I just really like the fists. They are my favorite weapon in the game. I have a lot of fun with them. The other is that I think that ranged weapons are a little bit easier than melee weapons, and so I'd like to show off what a run with a melee weapon looks like. If you're curious, though, I think that my general power rankings for these weapons are going to be that the rail, fists, bow, and shield are all about as good as one another for 32 heat runs. The sword is a little bit worse than they are, and then the spear is a little bit worse than the sword. The Eris rail is probably the absolute best weapon in the game, but everything else is perfectly competitive as long as you're not speedrunning or going for like 50 heat. Let's go ahead and look at keepsakes here. There are a whole lot of keepsakes in the game, and most of them are just not worth taking. For the most part, the only keepsakes you're really going to be looking at are God keepsakes, the Lucky Tooth, the Coin Purse, the Spiked Collar, the Palm Blossom, the Evergreen Acorn, and maybe the Sigil of the Dead, although I have not messed around with it too much. The ways that you can use keepsakes are either you can start with a God keepsake on Tartarus, and then use a God keepsake in Asphodel, and then you can either use a God keepsake in Elysium if you really need a third boon, or you can take the Palm Blossom if you're looking for extra power, or you can take the Coin Purse if you are looking for just some extra money and looking for something to buy. And then in Styx, you'll want to take a defensive item. I almost always take the Evergreen Acorn, but there are arguments to be made for the Spiked Collar or the Lucky Tooth that I will go over in a little bit. If you don't want to start with a keepsake, if you want to play it a little bit more freeform and see what you get and try and make a build from there, then I would just start with the Coin Purse every time. And if you are starting with the Coin Purse, then I would take the Interest keepsake or Interest Mirror talent that gives you 15% between floors, because you'll have a much larger starting cash pool with the Coin Purse. So, defensive-wise in Styx, if you have max Death Defiances, then the old Spiked Collar is going to give you more effective HP than the Lucky Tooth. Lucky Tooth will give you 100 health, the Spiked Collar will give you 125. You'll get 50 for the life that you're on, 25 for your first Death Defiance, 25 for your second Death Defiance, 25 for your third Death Defiance, for a total of 125. However, I think the Evergreen Acorn is more likely to save you more than 125 HP. If you're getting hit by the stronger Hades attacks, then you might save 200 or more health with the Acorn. Otherwise, it's mostly God keepsakes. Pretty much everything else is unpickable. They are nice enough. They're just completely outclassed by being able to force boons that you want. Palm Blossom is good for power. If you really, really just want to go with the flow, you can just take Palm Blossom and keep it the whole time, but I don't recommend that. Companion-wise, you can probably take whatever you want. I take Baddie just because I'm used to it from trying to do speedrun attempts. I used to take the Companion Rib, but I've realized that in the situations where I want the Companion Rib, usually in mini-boss encounters, I will actually be better off using a Baddie to just kill all of the enemies as fast as possible than having them tank the enemies. So this comes out fast, does AoE damage, does a huge amount of damage, very fond of it. The only other thing I really have to say is I'm not a big fan of Shady on higher heats. With more expensive shops, money becomes a little bit of a lower priority because you tend to avoid shops. Darkness is just not that good because we are not looking to farm currency, we are looking to win the run, and with healing reduction, the extra health gets a little bit worse as well. I don't really have much experience with Mort, Antos, or Fidi, so pick what you want, but I recommend Baddie. And then for this run, we are actually going to start with the Owl Pendant. We'll talk about that a little bit once we get into the run. Here is my general setup for 32 heat. There's a little bit of flexibility here, but I'm just going to go ahead and go over each pact, why I pick it or don't pick it, and why. We've got Hard Labor, which I do not like at all. It makes your other pacts even more difficult, and it makes easy situations into hard situations. Basically, every other pact either makes it so you take more damage or you're more likely to get hit. And getting hit more often and taking more damage is compounded by taking extra damage from hard labor. And so while it might seem tempting at lower heats because you're just not getting hit, eventually, once you pick enough things, it just makes it way, way worse. So avoid hard labor. Maybe 1 point's okay sometimes if there's something here that you really can't afford to take. Otherwise, leave it alone. Lasting Consequences is basically the same. It makes your hits that you take worse, and since you're getting hit more often and you're getting hit harder, this is just something you want to try and avoid. That said, I think that it is a little bit easier than everything else that I didn't take, and I do prefer 1 point in Lasting Consequences over 1 point in Hard Labor, because occasionally you'll still heal to full with Lasting Consequences, but the extra damage from Hard Labor might push you over the edge and make you lose a Death Defiance, and you really don't want to do that. So, while they're going to have mostly the same effect, there are just a few more situations where Lasting Consequences is inconsequential, where Hard Labor still might be. Convenience Fee is a very, very easy pact to take. Shops just become low priority. They're already kind of low priority because your alternate option is usually something you could get in a shop that now you don't have to pay for. So this doesn't really change how you play too much. Healing items from the well are still usually very affordable, and you don't have to worry about that. It does make, Centaur Hearts and boons and things like that from the shop kind of something that you can't afford to purchase, but doesn't really matter. This would be one of the first pacts that I take when climbing heat. Jury Summons is annoying. I definitely don't think that it's a free or a very easy pact, but compared to everything else that I did not take, I think it's easier. Enemies will show up more often, finding 60% more enemies per map, but they don't all show up at once. They show up across multiple waves, and sometimes they show up in the form of extra waves that you would not normally face. And when that happens, when you're just fighting more enemies that are showing up later, the room doesn't get any harder. I think it's a little bit longer. You can, have to dodge more often, but there's not more things on screen for you to worry about. And so it ends up not being as bad as it sounds. Extreme Measures 1 and 2, I think, are completely free. Extreme Measures 1 is maybe a little bit more chaotic than the base fight, but not very much more difficult. Extreme Measures 2, you'll probably take a little bit of damage by standing in the lava, not too much, probably like 30 damage or something like that. Extreme Measures 3 is definitely more difficult than the regular version, but not incredibly so. Asterius is a lot harder, but he's learnable, and Theseus is not really all that much more difficult. He's different, but he doesn't do a whole lot more that he didn't do before. Extreme Measures 4, on the other hand, very difficult fight. I would absolutely avoid it, especially because you really want to be doing like a victory lap if you can. You want to be coming into the final fight going, okay, there's no way I could lose this, I'm super strong, everything's going my way. And if you run into Extreme Measures for Hades, then you could be 3 Death Defiances, full health, really good build, and you could still lose. And that's just really demoralizing, really disheartening. I will take Extreme Measures 4 if I'm doing a 40 heat run, just because it's 4 heat. It's really hard to get a good 4 heat elsewhere, but I would avoid it for 32 because there's lots of other ways to get that 4 heat. Calisthenics program is not terrible, but you can't take it and Jury Summons at the same time. Because if you do, there's just way too much health and way too much bulk to get through on normal rooms, and you just won't be able to make it with Tight Deadline. And Tight Deadline is otherwise free. It doesn't make the game any harder, and is more heat than Calisthenics program, so I just skip that and go for Tight Deadline. And you could potentially take it instead of Jury Summons, but Calisthenics program is only 2 heat, and Jury Summons is 3, and also Calisthenics program works on all encounters. Regular fights, mini-bosses, bosses, Jury Summons only works for normal encounters. So I think it's a little bit easier, and it's an extra heat, so I would just go with Jury Summons over Calisthenics program. Benefits package, I find that for the most part, the Armored enemies with perks are not significantly scarier than the armored enemies without perks. They certainly can be scarier, and there are times where you're really going to wish that they weren't there, but it's 5 heat, and for the most part, you approach them in the same way. Hopefully you'll see a little bit of that when we're actually in the run, that they're not super scary. Middle management only affects 3-4 fights in the whole game. Most of them are not significantly more difficult than the regular encounters. Only like the Mega Gorgon is something where I'm kind of upset when I see it with middle management, and even that is not too bad. Asterius, if you run into him, is actually completely unaffected by middle management. That said, I would still rather have the giant soul catcher than Asterius show up as my Elysium mini-boss, but that is something to keep in mind. Underworld customs can be annoying. You have to sell a boon at the end of each zone before you can move on. Most of the time, this is fine. There's something that's not core to your build, you can sell it, you'll be okay. But sometimes, you only have a couple of boons, especially in Tartarus, and you're forced to sell something that you really didn't want to sell. It doesn't happen often, and it is a nice 2 heat otherwise. Usually there's some boon that you picked up that you just don't really care about. Forced overtime is hard. It is probably the hardest pact that I take for a 32 heat run. I only take 1 rank, but you could potentially take 2 if there are other heat options that you really, really want to avoid. There's no real way to avoid taking the first rank. They are 3 heat each, which is huge. 40% faster move and attack for 6 heat is incredibly good. But it does make the game legitimately a lot harder. Enemies are harder to dodge, it's harder to interrupt their attacks, you're just going to get hit more often, but you have to work with it, so take it 1 or 2 ranks and learn how to play faster. Heightened security sucks. Heightened security might be the worst heat to difficulty increase in the whole pact. It doesn't sound that bad, especially because you think, oh, traps don't matter, oh, I don't get hit by traps, but this does plus 400% bonus damage. An arrow in Elysium normally does 20 damage. With Heightened Security, it does 100 damage. The vases in the Hades fight do 30 damage. With this, it's 120 damage. So even getting hit once or twice with Heightened Security on by a trap in the last couple of zones can end your run. It can just make you lose a Death Defiance. It's not worth it at all. Maybe if it was 2 heat, or even 3 heat, I'd take it, but at 1 heat, it's just laughably bad. Routine inspection, you might be able to take 1 point in it. I wouldn't take anything after that. The first point in routine inspection really just reduces consistency. You lose your rerolls and you lose your increased rarities or chances to see boons. So your run will be a little bit weaker overall, but you can always get lucky and get everything that you need, or even if you don't, you're still going to see basically the same number of boons, and they won't be quite as rare, but you'll still have a good chance to get, rare epic boons. Anything after that, and you start to really cut into the power of the mirror, I just would not recommend it at all after that. Damage control is absolutely free for any fast weapon. Really for anything besides like the Arthur sword, it's super duper easy to hit enemies twice. With the fists, you're going to hit them twice before you even realize like that you've done any damage. Dashes, if you have a dash boon that does damage, will trigger one of those. There are a handful of other things, like let's say you have Zeus on attack. The first hit with the weapon will get rid of one of the armor pieces, and then the lightning from the Zeus will get rid of the second one. So that's a 1 attack that gets rid of both. And if you have, again, like a dash boon that does damage, then a dash attack will not only break both of them, it'll just do damage. So super easy to get around. Approval process is similar to routine inspection in the sense that you could maybe take 1 and you'll have less consistency and a little bit less power, but you could probably still win through it. I would not take 2. If you're taking 2, then you're just asking for trouble. You're only getting to, you don't get a choice in boon. once it appears, you have to take whatever it is that you're given, and that is just a recipe for a really whack, terrible run where you've got all sorts of stuff that just doesn't work together. Tight Deadline 1 and 2 are free. You should take them every single time. Clearing a zone in 7 minutes is super easy. Clearing the whole game in 28 minutes is even easier. I will say that if you cannot do that, if you cannot beat the game in 28 minutes 100% of the time without breaking a sweat, then you should not be attempting 32 heat. You should be practicing until you can do that, because it is really not very difficult. Tight Deadline 3 gets a little bit dicier. It's totally understandable if you have a hard time beating the game in 20 minutes or clearing Tartarus in particular in 5 minutes. I usually only have under a minute left when I clear Tartarus. After that, it does get a lot easier, though. If you can do Tartarus, you can do the rest. I'll usually end Asphodel with like 3.5 minutes left, and Elysium with like 6 or 7 minutes or something like that. So, very easy for the first 2 ranks. Third rank is up to you. If you can't take the third rank in Tight Deadline, that's where I put the second rank in Forced Overtime. But this is easier. A 5-minute timer doesn't really change too much. So let's go.
Do your worst, Father.
Alright, so the reason that I took the Athena keepsake was to try and pick up Divine Dash. It's not here, but as you can see, I've got the Divine Strike, Divine Flourish, and Phalanx Shot, the attack, special, and cast boons. That's because when you don't have those slots filled, any of the 5 primary slots, the game tries really hard to offer those to you. And so it's very likely that you'll get those. It's extremely likely that if I reroll, I will see the dash. And there we go, got the dash. The other nice thing about Divine Dash, I do think that it is in the running for best boon of the game. Probably is the best normal god boon, so not Hermes, not Chaos, not a do-over legendary. And the rarity doesn't matter. Dash damage is pathetic. 14 damage is nothing. You're really taking it just for the deflect. But the deflect does so much work and gives you so much safety. The other thing is that you really don't need any damage boons to clear Tartarus in 5 minutes. I know I said it gets a little bit dicey, but you can do it. And so picking this up now, having a ton of extra survivability, not having to worry about trying to pick it up later, is just a huge boost to your ability to complete the run. And then you can sort of work with whatever other boons you find later to complete your actual damage kit. So I will take Divine Dash and we'll get going. So you'll see, again, that I'm pretty much dashing whenever I can, just because it's that good. And something else that I'm doing, that I kind of forgot to do in the first one, is when enemies spawn, I'll throw a cast out, and then I'll dash at them, and try and get a dash attack in. And that's because the cast, right now at least, does 50 damage, which is a lot more damage than my dash strike does. And so if I can pop these shields before the cast actually hits them, then I will do extra damage with the cast. So you throw it out from range, you dash in, you start hitting them. Helps a little bit, not a ton, but it's a nice little trick. I got hit by a trap there, which, happens sometimes, and is another reason not to take heightened security, since that would have been 25 damage instead of just the 5 that I took. Alright, we're not getting great rune luck here. Centaur Hearts are quite nice, but I'm really hoping to pick up a boon sometime soon. I've got to sell a boon at the end of this zone, and if I only end up with one boon, that would be very unfortunate. I do think that, again, hearts are quite nice. I like them more than palms or money, but less than boons. However, I've also got a palm here for the one boon that I've got that scales terribly with palms. You know, I get 6 extra dash damage. Wow, that's really great. So here's a little trick that you can do. You can pause as soon as you see the room rewards, and that way you've got as much time as you want to mull over what you want to pick. I wasn't doing it before because we were never offered a choice, but right now we've got a Chaos Gate versus an Athena boon. Now most of the time I would take the Chaos Gate here. It's faster, and the boon is often going to be better, but I've only got 1 boon right now, and I really need as many as I can so that I can sell something that I don't really desperately need at the end of this zone. So I'm actually going to take the Athena boon here, since you can't sell Chaos boons, and hopefully it'll be something good, but even if it's not, that's something that I can sell. Oh, we got lucky and got a fountain anyway, so the time loss doesn't matter. I'm going to take Blinding Flash here, because as I said before, if you can get that and then have something that applies status curses on attack, then your dash attack will instantly give you privileged status. Here we've got a shop versus a mini-boss. The mini-boss is Zeus. I think Zeus is quite good on fists. It's maybe not my favorite, but it's up there, maybe 2nd or 3rd favorite attack for fists. And compared to a shop, which I don't really have the money to buy anything in, I'm going to go ahead and take this. And I got something that's actually pretty good. Let's see here. Yep. And that's why Meg is so good. So much damage to him all at once. This fight only took a few seconds. So this is unfortunate. Nothing I really want. I'm actually going to reroll, look for the attack boon. And here we go, epic attack. Perfect. So this run is shaping up nicely. We've got keys versus the NPC room. I think that the NPC room is a clear winner here. We don't have to worry about losing health. We can pick up the gold, which is, you know, not amazing, but it's nice. It's more than a normal gold room would get you. And we get the Boldy buff, which in this case is attack damage. Perfect. This is a pretty attack-centric build. So now we're going to really want to try and pick up Jolted from Zeus if we can, to the point that I will probably pick the Zeus Keepsake for Asphodel, unless we get some other crazy boon where I really want to get support for that. But as you can see, our damage is massively increased already. And we've got a Palm, and the first 2 or so Palms are going to be quite good for most weapons, but anything after that you probably don't want to pick. You get strong diminishing returns. And there, I got hit by another trap. So I would be down 50 health if we had heightened security. So picking up this Palm here for Zeus is going to be very good. And we can take a look at what's in the well. I don't need health. Yeah, I think I'm good here. So we've got gems, a trove, and keys. Troves take too much time. I will never ever do a trove when I'm trying a 32 heat run. I will also never ever go fishing in a 32 heat run. Even though the timer is stopped while you're actively fishing, taking the time to go over there and cast the reel and everything, it's just a couple of seconds that there's no point in wasting. And you know, you might be cutting it close in some zones, so it's just not worth the time. Here I'm going to take the key. I've already rolled twice, which this early usually I don't do, so trying to get a refill for later when I'm looking for better boons would be quite helpful. That's another trap that I got hit by, so I might have lost a Death Defiance by now if I had heightened security. One of the downsides to taking jury summons is that I'm not positive, but I believe that the way that the game generates rooms and how many enemies are going to be in a room is by the current the max HP of these enemies. So it might say, oh, you know, we're going to spawn only 5, you know, brutes, but 10 casters or something like that. And so with the damage shields and everything, if you have to fight more enemies that have less health, it can be more time consuming and more difficult to avoid taking damage than if you're fighting fewer enemies with more HP. Okay, let's take a look at hammers here. Concentrated Knuckle is something that looks like it would be good, but I do believe that the dash attack breaks the consecutive hit combo, so it doesn't do nearly as much as you would think. Draining Cutter looks very good. 2% health for killing foes with special is nice, but killing foes with special is not really a guarantee. I kill a lot of enemies with attacks, since I really only use special when it's fully charged, and if you've got something on your special that does damage besides just additive damage on the special modifier, then that might end up killing the enemy, and in that case the special isn't what killed it. Like if I've got Doom on special and the Doom trigger kills the enemy, I won't heal from Draining Cutter. On the other hand, Breaching Cross is incredibly good. Dash Striking is my main source of damage. Piercing Foes is fantastic, and doing 900% damage to armor is insane. It is a little bit unfortunate that we're using Zeus on attack here instead of something like Artemis or Aphrodite, because the plus 900% only applies to the base damage that we're doing, but still a massive damage increase, and will make elites super easy to kill because we'll just crush their armor in a couple of hits.
That's it.
Okay, here's a shop. This is probably the last place before the end. What boons do we have right now? Not very many, so I'm actually going to grab the Demeter boon here just so I have something to sell.
I'll take it.
Nourish Soul is also a very good boon, so I'm just going to pick that up. It helps offset the downside from taking lasting consequences, and makes it so that you heal even more than you normally would. I'll still probably end up selling it, but if I don't, then I could probably sell the Exposed from Athena and try and pick it up later. So as you can see, I'm not playing this perfectly. I'm still taking a bit of damage, but with the Athena dash, damage that I would otherwise be taking is just getting deflected back. So that was a clean fight. As you can see, I did have less than a minute left on the timer, even if it was just barely. Yeah, 86 out of 155 health is pretty good, so... Before I decide what keepsake I'm going to use, I'm going to see what I can sell. So here, I'm going to go ahead and sell... Well, I'm going to sell Lightning Strike, actually. I'm going to go ahead and grab the extra money from that, since we've already got the Blinding Flash, and I don't want to try and pick it up again. And we didn't find any Zeus support. So I'm going to sell Lightning Strike, and I'm going to pick up Aphrodite, and I'm going to try and get Aphrodite on attack. And that will be pretty damn good with the extra damage to armor.
Not up here. You want to go?
Okay, that room went well. Money's not the best reward in the world, so we've got a heart or Hermes. We've gotten a handful of hearts already, so we'll just go ahead and take Hermes, who is a high priority choice anyway. We're really looking for Greatest Reflex, but there are a couple of other very good Hermes boons. The one that makes you sturdy is quite nice, and there's also the one that lets you heal after you dash when you've been hit. Those are really the ones we're looking for. If I get an epic, what's it called, side hustle, the one that gives you money every room, since we're pretty early in the game, I might take that, but it'd be a lower priority than those. So I'll just go ahead and take the rare quick recovery. No need to roll. 40% of damage taken as a heal is quite good. It ups our survivability significantly. Here we have a Trial of the Gods and a shop. I avoid Trial of the Gods when I'm doing 32 heat runs. The reason for that is, one, you're on a timer, these take quite a bit of time, and two, they're hard. They're the hardest rooms in the game. If I were to take Zeus here and have to fight against the Athena room, well, that takes a ton of time, even if it's not that difficult. And if I take Athena and I have to fight against the Zeus room, well, I run the risk of dying. So I'm just going to skip that, take the shop, save some time. It's unfortunate that the alternate reward is a shop, but I do have enough money that I might be able to just buy something, since I did sell the Zeus attack. So that's 225 gold. Yeah, I'm just going to skip that. I don't want to pick up something like Demeter and just be really unhappy, so... Okay, we got the Mega Gorgon, kind of a pain, but not too bad. And then this actually went pretty well, because... Oh no! He got in the air before I could hit him! That's a little annoying. So that was supposed to just end it, but I missed my uppercut, so that took like 10 seconds longer than it should have. Okay, so I can grab Special does more damage and inflicts weak, and be pretty happy with that. But I actually think I'm going to roll and look for attack. I'm going to be a little bit greedy here. And I got rewarded. It wasn't as good as it could be. When boons go up in rarity, the rarity scaling does have a little bit of randomness to it. So the Aphrodite boon can be 1.8 times the base to 2 times the base, which means that it caps out at 100% bonus damage at epic. And I cannot find these enemies. Where have they gone? Where in the world? Okay. So, that was a big time loss, but it's not a huge deal. This is a speed run. It's not gonna kill my time. Alright, here... I'm gonna go ahead and take the NPC room. While Athena is nice, I do think that this is gonna be a little bit nicer. So, the timer is stopped in this room, which is good, because we've got a little bit of time to think about what we want to take. Currently, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boons. And I only really would be interested in getting Quick Recovery or Heartbreak Strikes rarity up. Blinding Flash is only there as a status curse. Divine Dash rarity doesn't matter, and I've got as much healing as I need from Nourished Soul. So, I could try and high roll Perfect Luck and get a heroic Heartbreak Strike, and if I did, I'd be very happy, but the likelihood of that happening is not great. So, I'm going to go ahead and take here the Refreshing Nectar, so that the next 3 boons I find have up rarities, and hopefully I will grab something that's not terrible. Gonna go ahead and grab this, mostly because I think that this is the last room before the boss, and I only picked up 1 boon that I care about, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab Zeus's Aid here. Yeah, it is. And I'm gonna try and sell Zeus's Aid. As good as it is, I think it's my favorite call. Everything else I have is very important. See, so now I've just got permanent privilege status, which means that my damage is huge. And I'm actually going to, in this case, try and take the Artemis Keepsake for the Elysium floor, because Artemis does the most damage for attack and special, if anything. The only problem with her is that she has an atrocious status curse that you can't really easily get privileged status on. So the only time I take it is if I'm in a situation like this, where I already have 2 easy status curses on dash and attack, don't have to worry about using special to pry. In which case, all I'm really looking for there is to maximize my damage output. One of the reasons that I do like Aphrodite so much, don't really think I mentioned, she is for the money, my favorite god of the game, is in addition to just having the built-in status curse, which several other gods do too, weak is my favorite status curse in the game. Oh, there's that fight done. Very simple, very easy, very clean. Weak is my favorite status curse in the game. The reduced damage taken is a huge survivability boost. I think it's better than anything else you can get. You don't have to worry about picking up a second status or second boon to get a status curse. I could sell quick recovery instead and save a reroll. Actually, I'm gonna do that. Quick recovery is good, but it's not amazing. So in the shop, there's nothing I want to buy, and we're gonna go ahead and go Artemis. So, right. Aphrodite also has the highest base modifiers for her attack and special damage, which means that she just hits really, really hard. With the hammer that we've got, it makes the armor damage insane. We're getting for basically 1,000% damage or something like that. And she has good support boons as well. So, just a huge, huge fan of her. Try and pick her up in every run. And if I can actually get the Artemis special, especially if it's an epic, which it should be, my damage output is going to skyrocket.
You found me, Artemis.
And here we go. Perfect. And she's going to be really good with palms because she has low base percentages, which means that palms, since they give flat increases in damage and damage is additive, work really well with lower base damage skills. Also here, I took the hammer over Hermes. I think they're both very good, but I do think that hammers are just a little bit better than Hermes boons. I think they're the best things that you can pick up, and with very few exceptions, I will pretty much always take a hammer if it's available. And there, I got hit by another trap that would have been 100 damage. Please don't take heightened security. Something about calls is, in normal rooms, you should probably just use them whenever they're up. Okay, let's take a look here. I think Explosive Upper is insane. We talked about Concentrated Knuckle already. Colossus Knuckle is okay, but I can always pick up Sturdy from Hermes, and they don't stack, so Colossus Knuckle is not as good as it could be, especially since I don't have any Hermes boons right now, so I'm pretty likely to be offered them. So, Explosive Upper's nuts. Sometimes I screw it up and I don't actually do the dash, but most of the time I do, and especially with Artemis, damage should be kind of nuts. Yeah, look at that. It hits in a huge AoE, it does extra damage. If I crit, the damage is increased even further. Ugh, it's gross. Alright, what do we got here? Shop versus Zeus. There's plenty of good Zeus stuff to take, plus some... we got Asterius, okay? Kind of annoying, not the end of the world. We still get to chunk him. Oh, yeah, we got crits off that. There's not really like a trick to fighting Asterius, like with this build especially. You just kind of dash strike as much as you can. You get a huge amount of invulnerability from dashing. Try and dash into enemies instead of away from enemies, since you want to use your iframes as opposed to your repositioning to avoid things. Okay, what do we got here? High voltage, not very exciting, since the only lightning bolts we've got right now are the Call, but Smoldering Air is phenomenal. Oh, and here we go, Aphrodite. Very, very happy about all of this. And a Thanatos room, very happy about that. If you don't know, Thanatos does stop the timer for tight deadline, so this is a room where you really don't have to worry about losing time. It's also extremely easy to beat Thanatos. You know, you don't have to close him out. But if he puts his little death mark on an enemy, you can kill that enemy before it goes off pretty easily. So he's got 1 right now, he's got 2 to my 10, and it's probably just going to get worse from here. You know, sometimes you can't do anything about that. It spawned right when he killed it, or right when he triggered it, but it's not too bad. Something else that's really, really nice about the Athena dash is that you don't even have to try to dodge most of these casts, and the deflections do so much damage that you might just straight up kill one of the casters that it bounces back to. One problem I have with Smoldering Air, and it's a me problem, not a game problem, is that when you have your Greater Call, there's a huge notice and it yells at you to press it, but when you have Smoldering Air, you have to remember to use your call every single time. Alright, here we go. We've got Heartrend. Your critical damage does even more... critical effects do even more damage to weak foes. Apparently I have not taken this before. I don't think that's true, but I'm going to go ahead and grab it. Life Affirmation would have been very, very good earlier in the game. If you pick it up in Tartarus or early in Asphodel, it's phenomenal. It gives you a huge amount of life. But Heartrend is going to be fantastic here. And of course the extra health from him. Alright, normally I would want to pick up a Palm, but Hermes is super good, and hey, we got a Fountain. Okay, well, we've got Greatest Reflex and Hyper Sprint. I would take Hyper Sprint over Greatest Reflex here only because they're both at common. If they were at rare or epic, Greatest Reflex would be a lot better, but this is just going to give me some nice damage reduction. And as you can see now, my crits are just doing absurd damage with Explosive Upper. Yeah, I just killed that thing like from full health. Okay, so something else that's really nice about Divine Dash is that these guys, a lot of times if you just dash into them to kill them, the Divine Dash deflect will stop you from taking any damage from them exploding. So they'll explode on you, and then you'll be fine. Yeah, oh, this is gross. This is going to make sticks super easy. There's something I want here. I think Eye of Lamia is pretty bad. Of all of the health restoring items, it's by far the worst. Even with Jury Summons and having you run into extra enemies, I just don't like it. Nemesis Crest, it's too hard to guarantee that I'm going to be striking behind people, and I don't really need the move speed. So we're going to move on. We've got an NPC room and gold. I don't need healing right now. I don't need extra lives. But the extra damage is still going to be way better than the 100 gold.
Achilles, I think so, sir.
That sounds agreeable to me.
So, Cyclops Jerky, and let's see what we've got here. Okay, I'll take Zeus. I'll see if I can get Billowing Strength, which gives you extra damage every time you call, which would be absolutely insane here. We're near the end, so I'm actually going to roll to look for it. Could not find it, so we'll take Lightning Reflexes, which is a decent amount of extra damage, and do the boss here. So for this fight, really what you want to do is just engage Asterius and try and avoid getting on the path of Theseus, since if he sees you, he's going to... nope, shit. I got hit by that. If he sees you, he'll charge at you and shoot bullets, and it's painful, and you don't like it. Okay, look at how much damage he just took. As you can see, I've been missing the explosive uppers. It is a little bit difficult to do a dash special sometimes with the controller. I'm also taking a lot of damage. I might actually lose a death defiance here. It'd be nice if I didn't. When I'm remembering to dash upper, it's very good damage. Something I really like to do here is try and just stack damage, because you can hit him from the front when he does this and he doesn't move. So, as you can see, I killed him immediately. And that's something that you want to try and do if you can. Just save all of your big burst skills while he's talking and getting ready to leave invulnerability, so that you can just blow him up and not even have to worry about his second phase. But with the extra healing, I still got mostly to full. Let's see what I have to sell. I'm just going to sell lightning reflexes. It's really not that exciting. I will buy healing here. Even though this is a little bit of overkill, it's still going to top me off. And then we're going to grab the acorn and we're going to get out of here. So we're going to have 9 minutes to beat Styx. That is more than enough time, even if it is a 5-sec. So I'm not particularly worried here. But the first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to take a look at the shop, see if there's anything I want to buy. The hammers that I have are insane, so I'm not going to take that, but I will buy these. Turning my damage from 78% to 105% is huge. I can't afford anything else, but that was a big pickup. And then let's see here. Something about Styx rooms is the first room can never have the Satyr Sack in it. Only the 2nd through 5th rooms can, and I believe it's weighted towards the 2nd or 3rd room. The other thing is that skull rooms are faster and easier, despite giving better rewards than regular rooms. I don't know why that is, but it is. So, you always want to take a skull room as your first room. You probably want to take a skull room as your second room, although in some cases the reward just might not be very good, and you might want to go for a boon or something else in a different room. Here, I'm definitely going to take the heart, and probably take the money after that, even though it's useless, just because the mini-bosses at the end of Styx rooms are way easier to deal with than the actual rooms of normal enemies. So, let's go ahead and take this on. I don't have an easy way to deal with these rats right now. I don't have a lot of big splash damage outside of the explosive cutter. That is something that Zeus would have been pretty good for, but I also don't think that these rats are much of a problem. You just kind of dash strike at them and they blow up. Something really nice about Divine Dash here is that you can actually deflect their poison strike back at them, and if they get poisoned, they die quickly. Another reason why I think Divine Dash is the best boon, or one of the best boons in the game. Certainly one of the best normal boons. So you can see I actually did deflect that guy's poison back at him. Alright, here's the boss room. Even though we do have to deal with 2 enemies instead of 1 because of middle management, it's really not bad. Look at that, I just blew them up. My goodness, that's strong.
A moment's rest.
So yeah, I'm just going to take the gold here. I'm feeling extremely confident about this run. I don't really need to try and pick up anything else to beat the boss here. I think that Hades is going to pretty much fold. I can do kind of whatever I want to him. And face tank him if I really want and still win. So I'm just going to go for speed and convenience more than trying to maximize my power. I also take fewer risks going this way. And these rooms are really just time-consuming more than anything. You know, the rats aren't hitting me at all. They don't pose a threat, but there's just so many of them and they keep spawning. And I actually got Tiny Vermin, which is unfortunate, but still not too bad. Tiny Vermin is not all that difficult. But it does move around a lot, so it's hard to get the cutter on them, the explosive cutter. Yeah. So, for now, I'm just kind of beating the hell out of it, hoping to land an explosive cutter to kill it, but it's dodged all of them so far. There we go, and look at that. That was almost half of its health just from the one explosive cutter.
Pick on somebody your own size next time.
We did pick up some money though, so I can go ahead and grab this palm, and I will probably take Zeus's aid here since I'm going to be casting it so much. And as you can see, 2 extra levels in Deadly Flourish is only like 12 or 13% extra damage, so the scaling here is just way better. Still going to try and look for Billowing Strength, since that gives me extra damage every single time I use my call, and I get to use my call incredibly often in this duo. That's going to be one of the biggest damage boosts that I can get. I'm going to go ahead and see if there's anything I can buy. I'll still buy the Eye of Lamia here. I just want to make sure that I'm at full health when I go into the boss. And I don't really have anything else to spend money on, so... Okay, and there we go, 3 sack. I had actually recorded this before, and my audio levels were way off, but it ended up being a 5 sack, so I'm pretty happy to see a 3 sack here. We also got Billowing Strength, and I don't have enough gold for anything, so let's just go ahead and fight the boss. There's honestly not a whole lot of strategy that goes into Hades. The big thing is that he has that big sweep that he does. It's really hard to dash through that, so most of the time you want to try and dash out of it just to be safe. Pretty much everything else is just fight him like normal. You don't have to blow up the skulls if you don't want to. You can dodge their little nova. But if he's invisible or something, there's no reason not to just take the time to do that anyway. I generally kill the ads while he's invulnerable after summoning them. If he goes back to being vulnerable, then I don't bother. Especially something like this, they just kind of fold, so yeah, see, I basically couldn't hit him the whole time because he went invisible as soon as he left vulnerability. Yeah, see there, I did get hit. It said resisted because of the acorn, but oh my goodness, this damage is absurd. I've just been forgetting to use my call too, so it could be even more damage.
No holding back.
So I did get hit by the base there, which was unfortunate. And at this point I'm just tanking damage, even though I could be avoiding it, but there we go. That is the fight. That is a 32 heat run. Hopefully that did help. That's going to be pretty much it for me. Just wanted to show the victory screen, show that I have in fact beaten the game with 32 heat with every weapon, and that I am on a win streak, so this was not just recorded after several failed attempts or anything like that. So, I really hope you enjoyed. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll do my best to get to them. And I'll see you later.